Okay, g'day Phil. How you going?
Hey, Pato, I'm going good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Um, so congratulations on your win at the Sat Champs to begin with. Anyway, that was so good being there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was great to see you down there as well.
Yeah, yeah, it was awesome. I had a really good close-up view of everything that was going on between loops and stuff. It was really, really cool to be there.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Uh,
a good surprise sometimes to just see you there, like lurking in the corner with your camera for the live stream. So, yeah, probably got a good few moments on
oh,
camera there.
yeah, you even let me wash your feet.
Yeah, how did you enjoy that?
I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Yeah, yeah. The foot baths, it's the key to a good backyard, getting a good foot bath.
Yeah. So I was looking at your the races you've done this year, and you definitely haven't done as many races this year compared to previous years. But when you consider you've been involved with Search for Hurt, and also you crewed for Sean Bell for a lot of the time while he was running around the side of Australia. Um, has running actually consumed you more this year than any others?
Um, it's definitely been a big part this year, but I mean, probably the last 3 years, I think running's really consumed me anyway. So definitely a different sort of mix of events this year. I think I've been to more backyards this year than I have in any other year, but only two of them I was running at. So I ran at Red Dirt and ran um, at the Sat Champs. But then, yeah, I was there at Mirror and Wernet to help with the Search for Hurt thing. I was at No Time to Die, just volunteering and helping with crewing for some people. Run director at Hurdy's. So yeah, there was a few events there, but yeah, just wasn't running in them all. And yeah, the 24 hour, the Asia Oceanic Champs, that was a big focus at the start of the year. I do love the 24-hour events as well, so that was something I really wanted to do and see how far I could push myself in that. And yeah, I was really stoked with how I went in that event. And then yeah, crewing for Sean, that was a really good opportunity that kind of popped up when I had my long service leave. So it just kind of timed in perfectly with that. And yeah, I was just, yeah, the right time and place, I guess, to get involved with that. And yeah, that was a really good experience. So I'm so glad I jumped on board to do that.
Yeah, yeah, that looked unreal. Before I ask more about that, you'd actually just reminded me about the Search for Hurt thing, and you did run in was it Chase the Sun race or something like that?
Yeah, so that was a 24-hour relay, which what was it about? I think 340 or 350 Ks over 24 hours, but between six runners.
Yeah,
So going into it, I was thinking, oh yeah, we'd be running like 10 Ks at a time, just passing this timing chip across and, probably do like 60 Ks each or something like that. That's easy, like 10K runs. But yeah, as it turned out, it was more like 400 meters at a time. And it's a 400-meter sprint. And then you're getting like a 5-minute breather before you're off and doing it again. And it was just full on, like, yeah, you got two cars following you. So you're switching between cars and you're trying to cook noodles while you're driving along because there's no time to stop. So that was a really good experience. We went pretty well with it until about the 20-hour mark. And then yeah, we kind of dropped off a bit and we didn't quite finish it, but yeah, it was such a good experience, different to any sort of race I've done before. And yeah, I just wasn't expecting to be doing 400 meters at a time.
I know that Macca he filmed you like you were because I most of the time I've seen you run it's at backyard ultras, so you're not pushing it. But
Yeah.
Macca posted a video of you running down this hill, and you were in absolute beast mode, and you were running so fast. It was bloody impressive to see.
Yeah. Well, towards the end of it, like when we're trying to work out like people's strengths and weaknesses, I was doing really well on the downhill. So yeah, some other people were just struggling with the downhills with their quads and stuff. But I was like, if there's a downhill, just, park at the top and I'll just run until you get to the bottom. And yeah, so I was like flying down those hills at like 3 minutes per K. I was absolutely loving it. And yeah, just my legs held up really well on
Yeah.
that. So yeah, that kind of became my thing when there was a downhill. It's like, yeah, just leave me at the top and I'll get us to the bottom quickly.
Yeah, awesome. So with crewing for Sean Bell, I mean, anyone who follows Sean Bell on Instagram would have got a pretty good glimpse into what he went through to run around Australia faster than anyone else. Um, but actually being there with him day after day, like, I mean, it must have been pretty hardcore. Like, what was it like?
Yeah, it was full on. So your day starts at like 5 in the morning. Yeah, you're getting Sean up and you're trying to get him on the road within like half an hour to 40 minutes. And then yeah, you're just basically stopping approximately every hour. So kind of like a backyard. You just stop every hour and, replenish him with food and sunscreen and, changing his shoes and all of that sort of stuff that he needs to keep going. And you just keep doing that till it gets to the end of the day when he's ticked off his 80 or 85 Ks or whatever it was he's doing for that day, which sometimes was, I mean, on a good day, it was probably around 6 o'clock. On a bad day, probably, yeah, I think we got up to kind of 8 o'clock. And then, yeah, it's just a matter of getting him to bed as quick as possible and getting him fed and do it all again the next day. So, I mean, I've followed a lot of these sort of challenges that people have done on Instagram, and you see the highlights reel, but it's something entirely different to see it in person and be there for every single moment of it. You see all the highs and the lows. It's not just the stuff that's captured on video. It's the boring, mundane stuff in between, and the bits that are really gruesome that probably not good to put up on social media. And just to actually be there and experience it and be a part of it it was such an amazing experience.
Mm. I mean, I'm not sure how well you knew Sean before you did it, or if you knew him at all, but I can imagine after sharing that long with him, I mean, now you'd know him quite well now.
Yeah, well, I didn't know him at all. So I was following him on Instagram, but I hadn't even been following from the start of his run. I kind of found out when he was partway through, and yeah, then I had a message from Tim Walsh from Dead Cow Gully reaching out to me if I knew anyone in WA who could help crew for him because yeah, Sean had reached out to Tim, and yeah, so yeah, Tim got in contact with me, and then I was like, well, hang on, I'm on leave, I'm actually going to be in Karratha at the point that he passes through, so it just kind of times perfectly. So yeah, I reached out to Sean, and like he was looking for someone from Broome to Perth. And I said, look, I can't do from Broome, but if you want someone from Karratha, like I can jump in from Karratha and do it to Perth. And at the time I was thinking it was about 2.5 weeks. And I'm like, that's kind of a long time. Do I want to use up the rest of my whole leave doing that? And I ultimately decided, yeah, this is a pretty good opportunity. Like I'll get to learn a lot from him, like just to be able to run with him and see what he does will be amazing. And yeah, kind of like a week into it, he's talking about needing crew from Perth to Adelaide because other people have pulled out, and I put a call out to other people in Perth to see if we could find someone. We ended up getting Craig Malley on board, and then it turned out that Sean needed someone else as well, and I'd kind of already like had the seed planted in my mind that if we couldn't line someone up, then maybe I can do it. And yeah, ended up just needing to swap a few extra shifts at work, and yeah, was able to sign on until we got to Adelaide. So I ended up staying with Sean for about 7 weeks, and yeah, I didn't run with him every single day. Like there were some days where he just wanted to run on his own, or he had to make a lot of phone calls, or I wanted to do a run at a faster pace or somewhere different to the highway. But yeah, I did get to run with him a lot and talk with him a lot, and yeah, it was just got to know him really well, got to know the crew really well, and yeah, so yeah, we're good mates to this day.
Yeah. So, I mean, you would have seen him go through some pretty hardcore stuff, like you said, and I mean, undoubtedly you would have picked up a few things along the way, and if you did, what did you learn, and what did you have you like? Are you going to implement in like your own backyard ultras?
Yeah, definitely. There's a few things that I picked up from him, which I used at the Sat Champs, which came in handy. So, and it's just little things, but they made a big difference. So, for his nutrition, one of the staples we're kind of giving him was Cocoa Pops with choc milk, and that was just a really good combo. And I used it at Sat Champs, and it was just amazing. I just loved it. You get that extra protein and stuff in there as well because I was using the protein choc milks, and it was just, yeah, I don't know. There's something about it. It just works really well. Um, yeah, there was a point in the race where I think it was the second day. My feet were just like the bottom of my feet were just really hurting, and needed foot bars and foot massages and stuff like that. And it was really the only complaint that I had. But yeah, just telling my crew like my feet are just really hurting. And then Mally, who was there crewing for me, who also crewed for Sean, he's like, just think of Sean's feet. And then I was like, you know what? My feet aren't that bad. So like, yeah, seeing what Sean had been through every day and then, tending to his feet at night and seeing how bad they are, it just made me think of my problems as, what am I complaining about? It's not even that bad.
Yeah.
So just those kind of little mental things that, you see firsthand, it does make a difference to your own sort of runs and what you think pain is.
Mm.
Yeah, a few other things. So like one of the things I asked Sean like early on when I was running with him is like, what's something that you've learnt on this run that you didn't think of like coming into it? Like what's some things that you've changed? And one thing that stood out to him and which he told me was using the arm sleeves. So this is something I've never used in races before. And I've just always thought, what's the point? Like, aren't you going to like overheat in them because, you're just adding an extra layer on. But if you get the proper, like the cooling arm sleeves, actually, they do make a big difference. So as you sweat, it wicks the sweat away. It has like this evaporative cooling effect. So yeah, you would have seen me at Sat Champs wearing the arm sleeves and yeah, just filling them with ice at the start of each lap as well on those laps, which were a bit hotter. So then as that ice melts, it just increases that evaporative cooling effect. So yeah, that's another thing that I took away from Sean that, I never would have considered otherwise. So it's just those little kind of 1%ers, like you don't really think much of them, but when you put it into practice, you're just like, why haven't I done this before?
Yeah, I actually noticed those arm sleeves, and I was going to ask you about it as well because I didn't notice. Did you even wear it like one of those buffs with ice in them, or did you just stick with the arm sleeves enough?
Yeah, so I did have the T8 net cooler, which you can put the ice into, but I really just saved that for like the really hot laps. So there's probably like 2 or 3 laps in the afternoon where I'd have that on. But otherwise, the ice in the arm sleeves and a little bit of ice in the hat seem to do the trick.
Yeah, cool. Do you think you'll ever do like an adventure kind of run around Australia or anything like that?
I've been asked this a lot. The short answer is probably not anytime soon. Like it's definitely kind of planted a little seed in my mind of some of the sorts of things I could do. Something like running around Australia for 160, 70 odd days, whatever it was. That's a long time. So maybe not something to that scale, but yeah, I have thought of some kind of smaller projects, maybe something that's done within 1 or 2 weeks. But at the moment, where I'm at with my racing, and whilst I'm still competitive in the backyards and the 24 hours, I think that's going to take my focus. But definitely, maybe in a few years' time, when I'm not as competitive or not qualifying for these races, or I've just had enough of doing those competitive races, it might be something that I then get into.
Yeah, cool. Now you mentioned that the Sat Champs were the second backyard ultra you've raced in this year, and the first was Red Dirt up in Karratha, and that looked like it was hot as hell. Like, was that the hottest race you've ever run in?
Probably, yes. I think the only one that I've been at that's hotter
Yeah.
but I didn't run was Miriam Wernet. So
Yeah.
I think Miriam Wernet, even though I didn't run it, just being there, just that felt like it was hotter. And then that combined with the course as well, because I did go and run the course after the event had finished. I was just like, I'm so glad I'm not running this race. But yeah, like red dirt, it was hot. It just like overnight, it didn't really get too much cooler. There was no bits of shade out on course except for, the laps just after sunrise or just before sunset. There was like a section where you got like 200 meters of shade. So everything else was exposed. And yeah, you've got that literal red dirt, which just makes it feel a lot hotter as well. Um, so yeah, definitely one of yeah, it definitely would be the hottest backyard that I've done.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty impressive performance by the assist. I think it was Jamie O'Bourne.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that kind of where that was a really good performance.
yeah. And coming from um, a PB of 16 to double
Mm.
that to 32, yeah, he was just amazing, and it was good to run with him. Um, yeah, so obviously he's a bit more used to the heat, so he lives up there. So I was like, I knew that his PB going into it was 16, but I also knew that he was very determined and he'd kind of done a lot of training for it. And so, yeah, I wasn't surprised to see him there as the second last one standing.
Yeah. I like the drone footage of you jumping in the pool straight after you completed that last one standing yard.
Yeah, so yeah, where it starts and you go off the start line and you have to run past that swimming pool
Oh,
every lap. And I just look at it and it's just like, it's just so inviting. And I did even consider on some of the laps, maybe I come in a bit quicker and I just have a quick dip in the pool. Um, but yeah, I never ended up getting to that point. But when it was on my last lap, I'm just like, this is it. I don't have to run after this lap. So I'm just going to
yeah,
keep going. I'm going to jump in that pool. And it was so nice.
yeah, unreal. So, so the Sat Champs, like compared to previous years, there was a long time between your last race, which was Red Dirt, and the Sat Champs. It was about just over 4 months, and that's
Yep.
easily the longest time between races the longest time between races you've had between a big one.
Yep.
So it was a different lead into the Sat Champs 2 years ago when you raced at Birdies in August, and then you ran a 50-kilometre race in September. So how did that longer break affect you?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, going back to last that chance, that 50K race, that was kind of just used as a training run. And that's something that I typically do in the lead up to a backyard is, um, yeah, like a few weeks out or, anywhere probably between 2 and 5 weeks out, I'll kind of look for a run, which is, yeah, something I can sign up to, which is, yeah, about 50Ks. Um, and yeah, so I think it was WTF was the one.
Mm.
And that just kind of lined in perfectly. And it's like, I can just do that as a training run before I start my taper. So this year I didn't have any races to sign up to, but you might have seen on Strava, I did do a 84K run and I did do another 50K run. So I still had the mileage there. It just wasn't, as part of a race.
Mm.
But yeah, it like, it kind of felt like it was a big gap between bigs and sat champ. So yes, I did have the 24 hour and yes, I did have the red dirt. But then again, like red dirt, it was a tough race with the conditions that we had. But when you think about, it's only 33 hours compared to like 100, it's, yeah, it's not really up there as like a big race. So yeah, I think coming into sat champs, I was probably a bit more, I don't want to say nervous, but yeah, kind of a bit more. I felt maybe like a little bit more pressure because I didn't feel like I'd done a big backyard recently. So I thought, yeah, it's kind of the first big one since big. So I was, yeah, maybe a bit nervous to see how I would go doing another big total.
Yeah. And do you think, I mean, looking back, do you think that's good, or do you think that before your next big one, you'll slice in another backyard ultra a bit closer?
Um, yeah, to be honest, I don't know. I don't know if that kind of big break is what helped me, or if it was a combination of other factors. I definitely felt like I was very rested, especially having not time off crewing for Sean, but just dropping the mileage back. I even felt that I kind of started my training block a little bit too late by the time I got back from crewing for him. So if anything, I was a little bit worried that I'd had too much time off. But I mean, when you look at the results, well, maybe that time off helped, but it's hard to know. It's hard to know. I'm the type of person that does like to kind of keep my mileage high heading into a big event before, dropping off for the taper. But yeah, I wish there was like an easy way to answer that, and you could know for sure one way or the other if it helped or hindered.
Yeah, yeah. So in the podcast we did before the race with Sean, like the Australian preview, we spoke a little bit about the 8 p.m. start time.
Yeah.
So now the race is all done and dusted. When you look back at that start time, did it have a bearing on your performance or the team's performance at all?
I don't. Again, it's hard to know. Like, I don't think it did. I kind of went into it like with a pretty good sleep leading into it. We came down early on the Saturday to set up, and then I went home and had a couple of hours nap and came back. So I was feeling pretty fresh. I think it might have played on my mind a little bit as we kind of got towards the end of the race, and we're entering like the fourth day. I'm kind of thinking, well, if we'd started at 8 a.m., we'd be finished the fourth day by now and would be heading into the night or whatever it was. And yeah, when you just think about where these milestones are, like I think like 108, the world record was kind of at the end of the fourth night. So, or end of the fifth night. It would have been at the end of the fifth night. So to think, you've been through 4 nights and now you have to get through another night to get to that world record. It did kind of make those milestones seem a bit further away. Whereas if, the 108 was at the end of a day, it might have seemed easier to reach. But I think overall, like, I think, because I was managing my sleep really well through the event. You just got to roll with the punches. So that's the start time that you get. You just make it work for you somehow. And there's no point kind of getting all negative about it or wishing that you started at a different time, because it's not gonna change it.
Yeah, sure. So I spoke to a few runners during the race, mainly, who said that they thought the first 10 hours or so were surprisingly hard. Was it all business as usual for you, or were there any hiccups or low points early in the race?
Yeah, the first night was definitely the hardest. I'm following my plan as usual, but there's a lot of stuff like I have on my plan to eat, and I'm not being able to finish it. So I'm just doing what I can with that. And I think it, like, little things just play on your mind early on. Like when you're in a race which you're expecting is going to go for 4 days or more, as soon as you get those little niggles or something like that, you just start thinking, oh, this is too early for this to happen. So I try not to dwell on those sort of little things, and I just, need to accept that, this is how I'm meant to be feeling. But yeah, by the time we got to like, I think for me, the third night was the best. So first night was pretty tough. Second night was probably tough because of the weather.
Yeah.
But other than the weather, it wasn't too bad. But then by the third night, I was just, sticking to my plan. I was eating the right amount of quantities of things I was meant to be eating, and sometimes more. I was sleeping really well. My mood picked up, and I was just really enjoying it. So, yeah, in contrast to later on in the race, that first night was definitely a lot harder, or it felt harder.
Yeah. What do you think it was? Do you think it's just because it started at night, or was the hard surface? I know a lot of runners thought that were not used to running on such a hard surface for such a long time.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues with the surface. I actually quite like that. I think yeah, maybe like psychologically because you're into the night, you
Mm.
kind of maybe feel like you've been running a lot longer than what you already have, or I don't know, like, and if people haven't slept during the day properly or haven't had that nap, you're already starting a little bit tired. But yeah, I think once you're kind of into the race, you're like, into a couple of days, you're not really thinking about that start of the race anymore, and you're not thinking about that sleep that you lost on that first day. You just kind of get into it.
Yeah. So I actually had Scott Snell on earlier today, and I was asking him about the Bigs course. And as far as Sat Champs go, one of the great things about I think is the course is a variable. It changes for each country. Every course has positives and negatives. So what would you say were the best things about the Australian course, and what were the challenges about the Australian course?
So I love the night course. Yeah, it was for me. It felt faster. Like, not that there was a lot of elevation in the day course, but you did kind of go. It was maybe a little bit undulating, whereas the night course felt a lot flatter. And yeah, I like the cooler temperatures as well. So I love the night course. But speaking to some of the other runners, I think I was probably in the minority there. I think some people preferred the day course. The day course for me, it just seemed to drag out a little bit longer. Like, you'd kind of have that main path that went around the lake, but then you'd turn in every time there was a trail, and it just felt like you'd turn into the trail, and then the trail would drag on, and then you'd pop out again. And then you go down the next trail section and you'd pop out again. And there was like 4 different trail sections. And then sometimes you kind of lose track of what trail section you're on. And then you pop out the top of the trail and you realize you're only on the second one instead of the third one. And it just kind of, I think mentally it kind of played with me a little bit. But once I got out of the trail, like on the way back, got out of the trail, and I just knew that I had that 1K left on the path, then it was like, I was happy because I didn't have to think about coming in and out of the trails anymore. You kind of did, not that it was technical trail, but I did find I had to be like a little bit more alert because there were like some tree roots and rocks and things like that. Whereas, yeah, when I'm on the path, I can just kind of zone out and run. So I think we had a really good course this year. So it was nice and flat. Yeah, nice and fast. I didn't mind the surface. Some other people did, but I'm used to doing a lot of road running anyway. But I think the thing that really stood out with where we had it was nice and central. So lots of people could come down, and just having that crowd support just adds that next level. And it was so encouraging to any time of night. Like, I don't think there was a single lap where I went out where there wasn't someone on course cheering us on. It didn't matter if it was 2 or 3 in the morning, like there was someone out there cheering us on. And then, yeah, back at the race village, just having that crowd there as well, people willing to go to the shops for the crews to pick up food items or salt tablets or batteries or whatever it was. It was like, we didn't have to think about anything. We just had to run. The crews just had to look after the runners. And there was just so much support around us that it just made everything else easier. So it was a really good environment, like a really good atmosphere to be running in. And I think that was probably more important than having the ideal course. Like, if there was a course that was better, but it was a bit more remote, like say it was 2 hours out of the city and we couldn't have that crowd there, even if the course itself was better, I don't think overall it would have been better, because I think that crowd support and like motivation and stuff was a key component of us doing well.
Yeah, it was an awesome vibe around the around camp. And I thought the other really good thing about it being an out and back is that you're able to encourage each other as you run past each other.
Yep. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, so you get to see each person every lap, and even if it's just saying good work or how you're going or something like that, having that interaction just kind of helps motivate each other. Like, there was a lot of laps where I was running on my own. Like, I wanted to do my faster laps so I could get in and have more sleep time. So those laps I wouldn't really get to run with other people, but on the way back I'd get to check up on each person or each group of people as I kind of went past. So yeah, that was another really good thing about it.
Yeah. It was really cool watching you and your crew close up between loops, like I mentioned. But I understand you had a few people in your crew actually crewing you for the first time.
Yeah, so obviously I had Gemma there who's crewed for me at every backyard. Um, Gabby was there as well. So Gabby was there to kind of help everyone as like a nutrition consultant kind of thing. But then she also jumped in specifically to help me at certain points, like when Gemma wasn't going to be there. So she's crewed for me before. But then, yeah, otherwise had Craig Malley. So he's never crewed for me before, but we spend a lot of time crewing for Sean. So I kind of knew how he operated. He he knew quite a bit about me, and yeah, he took a lot of stress off of Gemma, and he was just amazing as crew. Um, and then we had Tim Moffat. So Tim had come down to crew. He just wanted to come down and be a part of it. Nachi didn't have crew, so he's jumped in to help her. But then when she's dropped out and he's just kind of floating around, I've asked him if he can jump in and help out with us. And he worked really well as well. Worked really well with Jem and Mally, and then we also had Tegan. So a friend of mine and Jem's who like we go to quiz nights with. She'd come down for the Tuesday night, and the idea was so she'd be there to kind of let Craig and Jem get a bit more sleep on that night. But I mean that was the fourth night at that point, I think. And then I kind of needed two hands on deck at any one time, so I kind of had to tell Mally, can you just hold off having your sleep till Jem gets up? I want to just have two of you at the moment. And Tegan was really good. And that's the first time for her crewing for any event. I think I don't know if she's been to any other ultras, but yeah, it was really cool that she jumped in and helped as well.
Yeah. Did you have any like pre-race briefings with any of them?
Yeah, so on the Friday when we had that the dinner with the team and all that beforehand, we actually gave Mally a lift up there. And then so on the drive back, so it would have been about an hour drive. It was me, Jem and Mally in the car, and we just kind of, it wasn't like an official like crew meeting or anything, but we're just talking a lot of strategies and tactics and what to do, what not to do, that sort of thing. So yeah, us three were really all on board with what was happening. And then the other people that jumped in and helped, it was kind of just learn as you go. And I think at any one stage, I would have had at least either Gemma or Mally there. So as long as one of those were there, they kind of took charge, and the other people were there to kind of help out. So they could just pick it up as they went.
Yeah, yeah, and it looked like they were all working like a well-oiled machine. From what I could see, it was really good. Yeah,
yeah, they worked really well, and I actually had a schedule for them as well. Like, because Jem had to go away at a few points in the race to sort out the kids and stuff. So I had a plan of like, this is when Mally's on, this is when Jem's on. When Jem goes away, Gabby's coming in. This is when Tegan's coming. I scheduled sleep for them as well. So Jem was sleeping the first half of the night, Mally was sleeping the second half. So I kind of scheduled that all in, and they did really well with sticking to it. So, I mean, one thing with Gemma, like she's great crew, but she also likes to be there the whole time. Like she likes to be involved. So I kind of have to tell her, no, you need to sleep because this is going to go for a long time. Yeah. So it was good that she had that crew around her that she could feel confident in. I can disappear for 6 hours and I can come back and everything's still going to be all good. So
yeah, cool. So this was a team race, like every country against the rest. And every single yard from every single runner counted towards Australia's total. So what were some of the performances that stood out to you?
Oh, there are a few. I think the biggest one, and you've talked about this when you did your chat with Tim the other day, was Dan Kamak. So, like in the late 30s, he was dipping into that 56, 57 minutes. That chair came out from his tent to the corral, and when you see that happen, when you see the chair come to the corral, you're just like, this guy's got a few more laps left, if that. And to see him kind of just struggle in that red zone for a bit, like in that 57-minute zone. And he just kind of hovered around there, kept coming in, sitting straight in his chair, get sorted and go back out again. And then see him run 38 minutes at lap 54 and then go on to finish with 75. So you think he's almost done in the late 30s. His PB is 51 and then he's gone to beat his PB by a full day. So I think that one really stood out to me. And yeah, I'm just amazed at his performance, and he was a real asset to the team because, I mean, that's, yeah, if he had dropped out in those late 40s, we would be like 35 laps short of catching America. That would have been a lot of ground for me and Ryan to make up. And to be honest, that probably would have been put in the too hard basket. Like, that's too many laps to get. Tim is another one who, same thing. Late 50s for him, where the chair came from his tent to the corral, and yeah, coming in and, you know, just having a few minutes spare each time. And then, yeah, so from the late 50s to lap 77, he's back into 48 minutes and to finish with 82. So he's gone and beat his PB by 22 hours. So almost a full day. And yeah, just to see what he was like at the end there as well. Like, he's such a tough dude to hold on for that long. And a few others as well. So, Aaron and Johan, I think, is worth a mention because, their laps might have not been as high or might have not got a PB, but, they kind of got into that red zone, like that 57 minutes and above kind of, I think the early 50s. And there was probably like 4 laps in a row there where they had less than a minute turnaround. So coming in at 59 plus minutes and just enough to grab something and turn back around. So, and I think Aaron's closest was 59.55. So like a 5-second turnaround, and he comes in, and this was really great teamwork. I saw that, Rob Parsons was holding all of the stuff that he needed. So Aaron just had to cross the line and go back out, and then Rob could pass him all the stuff that he needed. So for these guys, I think in any other race, if they were kind of hitting those 59 minutes, that would have been it. They would have been out on the next lap. But I think being that team event, they're just like, we just got to hang on and just get those extra couple of laps. And I think Aaron and Johan did a really good job of working together to get those laps in. And when you think about it, when they're getting like a 1 minute turnaround, it's hardly even any time to sit down. So they're basically doing like 26, 27 Ks in a row instead of breaking it up into that 6.7. It's like they're just doing a continuous kind of 26K run. So I think, yeah, Johan finished with 1 more lap than Aaron. But they were, yeah, just seeing their performances, it's just, you know, they hung on for as long as they could. And yeah, to be there with those 1 minute turnarounds, it's just amazing.
Yeah. I was actually, off shift when they were coming in that late. So, but I've seen the replay on the live stream that we got. It was pretty tight, pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you and Ryan Crawford were running together for the entirety of each loop from, I think it was 91, and working together to chase down second spot. Like, were you having deep and meaningfuls out there together, or were you just focused on completing each loop?
Probably not quite deep and meaningful. We did have some good chats out there. I think me and Ryan, we're both kind of very independent runners. Like, we can go out there and we can run on our own for ages. We don't necessarily need that other person to help pull us through. And I kind of had a conversation like that at the start when I started running with him. He's like, oh, you know, if you want to run ahead, you know, I know how many laps I've got to do now. I can get it done, you know, if you want to do your own thing. But yeah, like I was happy to just, yeah, hang back with him and yeah, had some good chats out there. Yeah, kind of like we had that joint motivation of catching the US. Like, we knew how many laps we had to get there, or we thought we knew. Got to the end and it turned out that there was 1 more. So yeah, there was a bit of conversation about that, about reaching that point. And I think for Ryan, kind of having that as a new goal kind of, yeah, just helped him get through those laps. because there was, I think, yeah, kind of before we started running together, he was starting to cut it fine. But then, yeah, once we learned that America had dropped out and trying to do the maths of what we needed to do, it just gave him a new focus.
Mm. Yeah, well, look, I'm glad that you did run together because it was so awesome to watch the two of you working together to chase down that second spot. And I don't think I think it just added that extra something special to the race.
Yeah, yeah, it was good, and it's kind of good to finish a race that way. Um, like as I said before, I'm a very independent runner, and anyone who knows me knows I've got my plan. And it says exactly what pace range I'm going to be running in each lap. So it kind of does uh mess with me a little bit mentally that I'm now going and doing 55-minute laps when my plan says it's a 48-minute lap or something, and running at that pace. Like I when I do slower laps, it's like I'll run the same pace, but I'll just walk more. Whereas running with Ryan, he just had like a slower shuffle pace, so it's kind of a bit harder. So sometimes I might run ahead and then walk and let him catch up, or let him kind of run ahead as I walked, and then I'd run and catch up. But then, I mean, that's probably another thing I learned from Sean Bell as well, is the value of kind of running slow. And like when I'm running with Sean and he's shuffling along at like 8 minutes per K, it just feels so slow and it's so clunky and awkward. But I mean, I kind of drew into that when I'm running with Brian. I'm thinking about these times that I'm running with Sean and how Sean's done this for 160 odd days in a row. And but yeah, so it was a little bit out of my plan to be kind of running at that pace. But again, I was looking at the overall goal and staying together with Ryan. And I mean, even though he's saying that he can finish the laps in time, and I trust in that he can, because I know he's a powerful runner, and he can be a very independent runner, so he doesn't need that person to run with. I think it was just nice to share those last few laps together.
Yeah, 100%. When you were out on that last yard, the 96th yard, to make you the last one standing, like word around camp was that like, I'll get ready, he's gonna run a hot lap, he'll be back in 38 minutes type of thing. But you ran it in about 45 minutes, which is not quite as fast as people thought you were going to. So were you just savouring that last loop feeling?
Not exactly. So I was trying to remember, and I had this conversation with Jem this morning. But there was a lap which I couldn't remember if it was lap 95 or lap 96, but Jem's pretty sure it was lap 96, where I'd put my shoes on, but whoever had put my inserts in had put him in the wrong feet.
Oh,
So I'm pretty sure it was lap 96. And so I came out of the corral and onto the path, and then I'm like, something's not right with this insert. So I sat down on the post, playing around with this insert, trying to get it in there right. And then I thought, I've got it. So I've got up and I started running again, and like, nah, not quite right. So I sat down, played around with it again, thought it's fixed, and started running, and it's like, nah, it's not right. But I'm just like, I've just got one more lap, whatever, I'll deal with it later. And I kept running, probably got to about the 1K mark, or maybe a little bit past that. And there was a bench. And I'm like, I'm going to have another look at this because this is really annoying. So I've sat down again. And this time, instead of just shuffling the insert around, I've like pulled it out. I'm like, I'll pull it out and I'll put it back in. And as I pulled it out, I'm like, so it was on the left foot, and I'm like, this is the right insert. So then I'm thinking that they've grabbed the insert from the other shoe, my other pair of shoes, because my right foot felt fine. Like they didn't feel like there was anything wrong with that. But then I'm like, I'll just check it anyway. So I've checked it, and sure enough, I've got the left foot in the right and the right in the left. So I've swapped them over, and then I've been able to run fine. So that probably cost me like 5 minutes, just each time I've had to stop to play around with that. So when I was running, I was like, I know it's my last lap, and it's like I don't have to conserve energy and all that. But I did also, like, I'd gone through most of the race without having any major pains. Like I talked about my feet before, but then after the second day, that kind of cleared up. Like I didn't have any of the usual like niggles or tendon problems or stuff that I'd get. But then as I was running, suddenly all these pains are popping up, and I'm like, oh, I haven't felt that. And I'm like, well, maybe that has been happening the whole time. I just my body's kind of, or my mind just kind of pushed it to the side or something. So yeah, like I had this issue with my calf and, so I couldn't really push it super fast, but I was just like, I've just got to get through this lap.
Mm.
But then after I finished the lap, I'm then walking around fine, and all of those kind of niggles that had popped up in that last lap, I'm not feeling them anymore. So I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just a psychological thing.
Yeah.
Like my body's just deciding to break down because it knows it's my last lap. But
Yeah.
I was all good in the end. So
Well, it looks like the recovery is going well. You were back running again, and you paced Mally at Feral Pig over the weekend, didn't you?
yeah, so ran 50Ks with him, or 54Ks.
Yeah.
So I actually only paced him for the first 45S, and then I was going to be late for work, so I had to kind of sprint in the last 9Ks. But you know what? I'm definitely feeling that today. Like I felt really good throughout the whole 50Ks, and I'm thinking I don't feel like I've got 96 hours in my legs at all. Like that kind of felt like it was so long ago.
Yeah.
But then yesterday and today, I was kind of feeling it a bit more. And I think maybe because there's a lot of hills in Feral Pig. And then I was also carrying, like, you got to carry a lot of mandatory equipment. So I had like a heavy vest on, and I had a lot of stuff in my pockets. And I think that's kind of affected my hips a little bit. But yeah, I mean, really happy to have effectively done that 50Ks without any major issues. So recovery's going really well.
Yeah, cool. So you've had time to reflect about the whole race as a whole and as an individual. So on an individual level, where do you rank that performance?
Like I think in terms of how I felt throughout it, like not looking at the number of yards that I did at the end, because yeah, obviously that's not a PB or even my second highest, but just going by how I felt throughout the race, how I felt at the end, how I pulled up, I think that's the best I've ever gone in any backyard. Even when I think back to like when I first did the 48 hours to get that Australian record the first time, I think I pulled up better from this 96 than I did from that 48. I think I felt a lot better, like in a lot better headspace the whole time than I did in that event and other previous events where I might have only done 50 or so. So yeah, I think everything went really well. Like looking back on my plan, there were some small changes that we made on the go, but there was nothing major. There were no points where we really had to rethink what we were doing. It was just little changes like, you know what, that food's not working for me anymore. Let's do this food instead. My pace, I was sticking to my paces the whole time. There were like my mood and I was coherent the whole time. Like normally I get to that fourth night and I start to not go loopy, but I might get a little bit confused about what it is I'm actually doing or trying to achieve, or like I don't quite understand what's going on. But I didn't have any of that this time. I didn't have any gut issues, and as I said, I didn't get any major injuries or tendon issues throughout the whole thing. So in terms of all my other backyards, I would say that this is one of the best performances that I've done.
Yeah, unreal. And what about on an excitement level of epicness? Where do you think the race as a whole ranks?
Yeah, definitely probably one of the top as well. And as I just talked about before, with that community support, I mean, Sean's Ultra Series events always kind of have like a huge level of community support, but I think this was just next level. And like the race village setup, all the crews kind of working together as well. So there was a lot of like they had their own chat group going, and so they're sharing tips and gear and offering advice and stuff like that. And yeah, just as I said, like having someone out on course somewhere on every single lap, just cheering us on, it was really good. And then just the whole satellite champs component of it, where you're seeing where we rank against the other countries. So we've got like a united goal. It's not just who's the best in Australia. It's, can we beat these other countries? Can we get more laps than these other countries? How many runners have those other countries got left, and how many have we got left? And, like at some points we might have had like one more than USA or even Belgium at some point, and then we're like, well, if we keep going every yard that we do, we're closing the gap. And that became really like a really big motivator at the end as well, when it was just down to me and Ryan, and we knew how much we had to catch America. So I think it's a really good way to do a backyard, and definitely different to your standard one.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, the Sat Champs has grown every year as far as involvement goes. Like there were 61 countries this year, and the awareness around the whole concept of how it works and representing your country was on a whole different level this time compared to 2 years ago. Um, do you think that the Sat Champs are at a stage now where they are an even bigger deal than the individual world champs at Bigs?
I wouldn't say it's a bigger deal, but it's definitely um, like it's going to be more accessible for people, because in this one we're getting 15 of a nation's top runners, whereas Bigs you might only get one or two. Like last year we had, was it 6 or 7 Aussie runners? But I don't know, like looking at what the at-large list gets to now, I think we're going to be lucky to have 1 or 2 runners there. So I think in terms of more people being able to run it, and just having those 15 runners from each country, I think it's just a different way to do a backyard, and it's like more people can get involved, and you've got your whole country kind of getting around you as a team, to take on the other countries. So I wouldn't say it's a bigger deal than the individual champs, but it's definitely like a different way to look at the championships, and it's really good the way that it's set up, and I think it's good how they alternate each year. So. You can have a chance of doing both, because they're both very different experiences. And just being like in your home country and being able to travel to it a lot easier, and having that crowd support and stuff is just really good.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of what the Davis Cup used to be like for Australia. Like, just everyone loved it. But it was a lot different because it brought the team aspect to the sport rather than such an individual sport that's tennis. And it's kind of like a little bit like that with backyard ultras, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a big follower of tennis, so I don't quite know about the Davis Cup. But I think it is in terms of like for the country to watch and follow along, it's a really good one to get involved in.
Yeah. So Belgium, they did it again. They broke 100. And they stopped at 110 to break the world record by 2 yards. Ivo, Morin, and Frank the Tank all stopped together. And I was wondering, Phil, like, how do you think you would react if you were in a backyard ultra in world record territory, and the other runners who were left suggested that you all stop together? Do you think that you would do it?
I've been asked this before, and sorry, I haven't been asked this by a runner to stop together, but it's one of those things that come up. Like whenever you get something like the Belgians finishing together, they kind of ask me how I'd respond. Personally, I think I'd find it very hard to. I mean, I think maybe it's a little bit different in the team thing. Like with Belgium, they're already the last one standing in the world. They've already, smashed everyone in terms of number of laps. So, maybe it was quite fitting that they finished all together. And, they might have even had that goal from like, they could have been struggling in the hundreds or something. And then there's like, well, if we can all hold on to get to 110, we can all stop together. That, maybe having that common goal kind of helped them hold on. But for me, it's like in your typical backyard, it's always like, it is the last one standing. And even if it came down to like me and my best friend running together, I would still want to like keep going to see how far we could go and who can be the last one standing. And even if that means that I come second, but I've pushed myself harder than if I agreed to stop at a lower number to share the, well, it's not even a win, share the DNF. I think the spirit of the backyard is to keep going until you physically cannot anymore. So you might be able to work with someone for a while to get to a certain point. But then, yeah, it might get to the point where you kind of have to do your own thing and just see who's going to be the strongest runner. And if that means that, you know, you're kind of running against your best friend and to see who's the last one standing, it's like you're still both pushing to as far as you can go.
Yeah.
So yeah, if someone suggested that to me in a race, I don't know. It would depend on circumstances, but I think sitting here now in the comfort of my chair, I'd say that no, I'd like to keep pushing, and even if that meant that I got second, but I got a bigger PB, or I got further than what I would have than if I dropped out.
Yeah. I was thinking about it, and if I was in the situation and someone suggested it to me, I think I would say okay. We would go in the corral, I would shake their hands and give them a hug. And then when the bell rang, I'd just sprint off and take the win.
Yeah, that's a bit of a dirty move, I think. But yeah, you know what? There's a lot of mind games that goes on in backyards towards the end, whether they're subconscious or not. But yeah, I mean, if you really wanted to win it, and that's maybe one way you could do it. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if it was against my best friend, I wouldn't be their best friend anymore if I did that.
Yeah. Well, now you've just gone and told everyone on the podcast, so you're going to know if they get in that situation with you to not trust you.
So when Ross McLean was on the podcast recently, he mentioned that being able to sleep is his backyard ultra superpower. What would you say is your backyard ultra superpower?
So there's been a lot of conversation about how the backyard ultra is like the ultimate leveled playing field because it takes speed out of the equation and stuff. But for me, I think that my speed does play a big role. So, you know, I've got a marathon PB of sub 240. I've got a 5K PB of sub 16. So I do have a good top end speed. But what that also means is that my cruising speed is like 5 minutes per K, and even like 5 minutes 30 per K is probably too slow for me. But 5 minutes per K in a backyard gives you a pretty quick time. That'll give you like an under 38-minute time. So I think for me, being able to run at those faster speeds quite comfortably gives me more time in the break, which means I can get, 15 minutes of sleep instead of 5 minutes of sleep, or, I can have my feet off the ground, out of my shoes, or in an ice bath for, 15 minutes instead of 5 minutes. So I would say that's, if you want to say superpower, like that's my strength in backyards, I think, is my speed. And that's why I asked a question to Tim as well for the backyard stats, if there was any correlation between your average speed and how far you got. And yeah, he said there's no correlation there. So, I mean, I think each to their own. Like, a lot of people might work well with having 55-minute laps, but they might be the people that can go a long time without sleep. Whereas to me, I really value my sleep. So if I can get that extra 15 minutes by running a faster lap, then that's where I'll play on my strength. I'll play on my strength of running fast to get that sleep, because I know that I'm not going to function well without the sleep. And yeah, like as I said before, like running with Ryan, trying to run at his pace, it actually kind of messes me around a little bit mentally. And running at that slower pace, I do find like clunky, and I find it harder, and just coming in without a good sort of buffer of time is a bit harder on me. So yeah, that's running fast for me works well. I get that it doesn't work for a lot of people. But I think it's definitely an advantage to be able to do those faster laps, but comfortably.
Yeah. You're talking about sleep. Well, kind of talking about sleep. I knew before the race that you enjoy a bit of trivia down at your local pub, but I noticed that you don't mind a bit of trivia between loops at your races too, in particularly after you've woken up from your sleeps.
Oh, that was just something that was Gemma decided to start at this one for some
Right,
reason, and
right.
I don't know why. Like, maybe because Tegan was there as well, and she's part of our trivia team, and yeah, they just thought that they'd ask me questions as I got up, and I don't know, maybe they're just trying to test how sharp my mind was.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that wasn't my idea, and I wouldn't say it's like it's not a tactic or anything like that. I think they were just having a bit of fun and just trying to see if I was still thinking straight.
Right, okay, yeah, because I thought it must have been a strategy, like ask me a trivia
No,
question to sharpen me up.
yeah,
So I'll just preface the next question by saying that I love Matt Doobie. We're good friends. But when I
yeah,
was running at Shepparton and it came down to just the two of us, me and him, I hated that guy's guts.
yeah,
So you've been down to the final two in a backyard more times than most people. So can you relate to that type of feeling?
yeah. There's definitely been events that I've done where I've been with that second last person, and yeah, I've just hated him. And yeah, it's just everything is about how do I beat this person. But then there's been other ones where we've just been running together and we've been having the best time. So maybe not the best time, but we've been in it together kind of thing. So like running with Big Kev at the first Hurdies, that's a really good example of us just running together and just having this really good bonding experience. When I ran with Aaron at Birdies, when he did 53 and I did 54, like those last few laps, we were just working together and trying to get Aaron as far as he could go. And I was trying to push the Australian record up that little bit higher. So yeah, there's definitely like there's a lot of events where I've been running and I've really enjoyed running with that last person, but then there's other events where I'm just like, when is this guy going to drop? Like I'm not feeling like I want to quit, but I'm like, if that other person quits, I'm going to be so happy that this is over.
Yeah.
And I think I'll say this now because like I actually had a really good time running with Ryan in this Sat Champs, but the last Sat Champs, that's like how I felt. I was just like, I just want this guy to drop. Like, why won't he give up? And I kind of, like, and that was my first time ever running with Ryan, and I didn't know a lot about him, and that's that chance. It was more of the, even though it was a team event, there still was a bit more of that individual mentality, and it was even a little bit of East Coast versus West Coast, and I think maybe like I was struggling a lot towards the end of that, but I could also see he was struggling, and I was just like, when is this guy going to drop? I don't know how much longer I can keep going. So I need him to drop before I do. But yeah, like since that event, and I've run with Ryan a few more, and we're in touch through social media and stuff. And yeah, this race we had a really good 4 or 5 laps together at the end. So yeah, I didn't feel that way this time. Like this time we had that common goal, like more of a team mentality, and yeah, just helping each other get through those last few laps. So it was good.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why everyone enjoyed it so much. Just because you could tell, like, I mean, you were working together, and yeah, it was just awesome. When you are deep in a backyard ultra, do you try to channel any particular emotion or make sure you avoid certain trains of thought?
Yeah, well, one trap that I do get caught in, and I do like this is my advice to other people, like, and it's easy to say when you're not actually running a backyard and deep in a backyard, but I do get caught up in thinking that the event's going to end soon. So when it gets down to just 2 people, particularly, you're now looking at the other person, or how are they looking? What time are they finishing in? How many more laps do I have to go to outlast them, and things like that. So I did kind of get caught in the trap a little bit this time. Before we'd kind of realized that we are closing in on the US, and Ryan was, he was getting to the halfway point at like, I could see him across to the halfway point. He was coming in at like 29 and a half minutes, but then he'd do a quicker second half and get in a little bit quicker. And I was, kind of getting caught up in my own head thinking, this is going to end soon. So I need to remind myself, and I mean, my crew does a good job of reminding me, and I don't really stay in that headspace for too long. But I do need to just bring myself back to just focusing on each lap, not worrying about what the other person is doing. I've got a plan. Let's follow this plan. This is telling me what I need to eat. And even when it got up to like lap 95, so Ryan had finished lap 95, and that was the last lap we needed him to do to get us in front of the US. And then so I just had to do lap 96 to take the win. In that break between 95 and 96, I was still going back to my plan thinking, what do I need to do? Like, based on the fact that I got to assume that Ryan's still going out, because even though he said there's no way he's going out for lap 95, and then he still managed to go out for 95, surely he's going to be done for 96, but you just don't know. And, maybe Big Kev would get in his ear and tell him about how he regrets stopping at 47, and, he's so close to getting that 400 miles or something. So, yeah, in that lap for 95, even though Ryan said there's no way he's doing another lap, I'm trying to stay in the headspace of, well, we don't know that. And then, you know what, if he does do 96, then maybe he's like, well, I'm close to 100. Mm. So things that I need to do, which, if I know it's my last lap, I probably don't need to worry about doing it. If I am thinking it's my last lap, I might not do that. And then if I end up stuck in like another 4 laps, it's like I might have missed like 3 hours worth of sleep, 3 laps worth of sleep or something. And so, yeah, so for this one, I think lap 96, or at the end of lap 95, I needed to take a no-dose. I'm like, well, I'm not going to take a no-dose if it's my last lap because I want to sleep after it. But I took the no-dose and I put it in a little bag and I put it in my pocket. And I'm like, I'll start the lap. And if Ryan starts the lap, then I'm having the no-dose, because then I'm going to be ready for the next 3 or 4 laps.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just kind of take it as it comes. But yeah, it's very hard when you're deep into the race to not get into that headspace of, this is almost finished. But you need that's why you have to have a plan and stick to that plan and make sure your crew's on board and they're trying to keep you out of that headspace. And yeah, don't worry about how bad the other person's looking, because you see with someone like Danka Mack, who's, he's coming in and the chair's coming out and he's spending quite a few laps not moving from that corral. And he can go on for another 24 hours. So if you get caught up in that headspace and you're stuck for 24 hours thinking, this is my last lap. No, okay, this is the last lap. Okay, this is the last lap. They can really get to you. So, and even if they say it's their last lap, like when I ran with Kev at the first Hurdies, there were so many times he said it was his last lap and we still ended up getting to 48. So yeah, you just don't get caught up in that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I heard you on Brent Ford's Peak Too Soon podcast talking about 24-hour races, and this is just after you won the one in Canberra. And that at that point you weren't able to commit 100% if you were going to go to the Bigs next year or the 24-hour World Champs. So are you able to put that speculation to rest?
Not really, no. So it's actually got more complicated.
Yeah.
I originally thought that Bigs was going to be in October and the World Champs was going to be in December. So I was thinking I could still possibly do both. There is an issue of them being too close. But then I've also got, like, this year I've got the Sat Champs and I've got another 24-hour in December. So I was kind of going to see how I went doing those 2 races with the same distance apart or the same time frame apart. But now I found out that the World Champs is actually in October as well. So it's either the week of or the week before. So now I definitely have to choose between one or the other, and I can't try and do both. And I am still very undecided because I like both events for different reasons. Bigs is an event that I've done before. Yes, I've got unfinished business there, but I've been to that course, I've done that race. Whereas like the World Champs for 24-hour, I haven't had that opportunity to do before. There's probably a shorter lifespan with being at my peak fitness for a 24-hour as opposed to a backyard. So yeah, there's a lot of factors to take into account, but I don't think I'm going to make that decision until I reach that last minute where I do have to decide. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Dead Cow Gully is the next big one to focus on. You know what? Maybe I'll just go really well at Dead Cow Gully and decide, yep, I'm happy with that for a backyard for this year, and switch the focus to the 24, or maybe I'll have more unfinished business at Dead Cow Gully and want to go do another backyard. But I don't know. It's too hard to decide. At the moment, I want to do them both equally. I know I can't do them both. So yeah, just watch this space. I will have a decision by this time next year.
Yeah. Okay. By this time next year, the race will have been.
Yeah. Well, 11 months from now. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've got Dead Cow Gully as a definite next year. Like, I'll list a couple of others. What about Hurdies?
Probably not, but I will be there too. If I'm not running, I'll be there in some capacity. Just, it's so close to home. So yeah, RDing, hopefully. But it's going to come down to work as well, depending on how much time I can get off work, because I've kind of used up so much leave and standbys and stuff trying to get all the other races and crewing for Sean and all of that this year. So next year I have to be a bit more careful with my leave, but
yeah.
I will be at Hurdies in some capacity.
Yeah. Okay. And
probably not running though.
Yeah. Same thing with Birdies.
Yeah. Yep. Same deal with Birdies. Red Dirt Backyard as well. I'm going to that. It is a week and a half after Dead Cow. So it's 2 weeks between starting times. So by the time it finishes, it'll be about a week and a half between events. I am going to say at the moment that I'm not going to be running that, but if I pull up really well from Dead Cow Gully, maybe I will throw my hat in the ring and run that one. But that's the big if.
Yeah.
Like if I pulled up as well as I pulled up from Sat Champs this year, then it's probably more likely that I'll give it a shot. But I'll wait and see. I will be there in some capacity though.
Yeah. And what's the 24-hour race that you're doing this December?
So that's it's called the Soochow University Invitational. So it's in Taiwan.
Yeah.
So they invite, I can't remember how many athletes it is. I think it's 24 international athletes who have reached a certain benchmark. So because I got the 265 at the Asia Oceanic Champs, I got the invite. Holly Ranson is the other one from Australia who's going over. And then, so that's, I think 24 international and then 24 local Taiwanese. So that it's an event that they put on to give their local athletes a chance to run with the international elites.
Yeah, sounds unreal. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, I ask for 3 backyard ultra tips at the end of each episode. I remember last time you were on, I kind of stuffed up the questions, so I wasn't able to give you the proper opportunity to answer it properly. So, what are your 3 backyard ultra tips?
So, yeah, my tips. So, anyone who has followed me in my backyards will know that I like my foot baths. Pato, you've had the pleasure of giving me a foot bath. I was finding during Sat Champs, it was like I was needing one every single lap. But because it's such a process to, take your socks off and then, wash the feet and dry them, get the socks back on and the nut butter, I was like, I need a better way to do this. So it just kind of came to me, and it was at lap 39, I was running around and I'm like, I should put my feet in plastic bags. So I come back in, got an ice bath set up, take my shoes off and then put my feet with my socks still on in plastic bags and then into the ice. And that was just to cool those feet down, because they were getting pretty hot running out there. And just to cool those down in between laps, that made a big difference. And it wasn't a hassle. Like I didn't have to, take socks on and off and, reapply squirrel's nut butter. And then, my crew was going around and telling other people about this idea. And so a few other runners are trying it. So that's definitely something I'm going to be implementing in future backyards, is ice baths, but just putting your feet still in socks into plastic bags. The other thing that worked really well was my sleep was a lot better this time. And there was a few different things I did differently with my sleep. So normally I'll sleep on just a plain stretcher bed, and I'll lie on my back and have my noise cancelling headphones in. And with my noise cancelling headphones, they're good for blocking out the sound, but I can't sleep on my side or on my stomach like I normally do at home. So this time, instead of using the noise cancelling, I used my Loop earbuds, which is what I sleep with at home. And that worked so much better because then I could sleep in a comfy position. I could just tuck up like I was in a normal bed. And I think I just slept a lot better. The other thing I did with my bed was, instead of just having the stretcher, I had the stretcher and then I put a mattress on top. And the way that the stretcher kind of cradled the mattress, it was just super comfy to get in. The only problem was I just didn't want to get out. So, but every time I got out of bed, I was like, I'm so looking forward to when this event ends and I can just come into this bed for 8 hours because it's the comfiest bed ever. So yeah, that would be my second tip, is just really look at your sleep setup and how you can improve it. So for me, it was using the mattress with a stretcher bed and using the Loop earplugs. Another thing, a new thing that I implemented, and this is just a 1%er, but I use a Yeti water bottle. And I don't know if you've ever used a Yeti water bottle. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. This is not me trying to promote them, but I bought one of those, and it keeps your water cold for ages, like 48 hours, you still got cold water in there. And so I had that, and I was drinking that in between laps. So normally I find it really hard to keep up with my hydration. But having that Yeti bottle there and having that ice cold water, especially when it was really hot during the day, it just made it so much easier to drink water and stay on top of my hydration. It just tastes so much better when it's ice cold. So if you've got a Yeti bottle or you've got a way to keep your water really cold, do that in between laps, because like I'll take water or trail brew out with me when I go on the lap, but after the bottle's sat in your pocket for 5 minutes, it's warm and it's not great to drink. You're kind of just doing it because you have to. But when you come in and you sit down, you're just craving that ice water. So that'll be my third tip: get cold water in between laps.
Yeah. Gemma mentioned that Yeti water bottle to me. She said that you first saw it at Red Dirt. Everyone had them or something. Is that right?
Yeah. So in Karratha, everyone has Yetis, Yeti Eskies, Yeti dog bowls, Yeti can coolers, like everything. And then I was just like, I just got to try this, and so I bought one, and then I was just like, the water, it just tastes so much better out of that bottle. I don't know what it is. Like it does keep it cold, but I don't know. There's something else about it. It's really easy to drink.
Yeah.
It worked really well.
Yeah, unreal. Well, I'll have to get one for my next one for sure. Well, thanks heaps for coming on again, Phil. Like, you've been such a great guest, and you always say yes whenever I ask you to come on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I always love having a chat with you, Pato. And I do like sharing the different insights and stuff that I learn with other runners. So
yeah, awesome. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm coming to Hurdy's, so I'll see you then. But I'll definitely see you at Dead Cow Gully. That will be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be wicked. Can't wait.
Cool. All right. Well, look, thanks again, Phil. Congratulations on the win at the SAP Champs. Don't hang up. I'll just press stop on the recording, okay?
Yeah, no dramas.
Thanks, Phil.